Hello and welcome back to the Wheel Talk podcast. My name is Abby Mickey and I am joined by Loren Rowney and Gracie Elvin today to discuss La Vuelta Femenina, Lotte Kopecky, and plenty more. Loren, hello.
G'day everyone.
Gracie.
Hello. It's good to be here. I left the g'day to Loren this time. She does it so much better than me.
No, I'm just trying to embrace my Australianness. I don't know, Aussiness? That's such a... Anyway, it's midday here. And it's already been a long morning, so I'm ready to talk about bikes, other than mountain bikes.
No kids, no mountain bikes.
Yeah.
Well, we have only one day, as we're recording this on Monday morning, we only have one day of the Vuelta done, but already a ton to talk about. We're going to preview the rest of the Vuelta, which will be a little bit of a moot point. Is that the saying? When this comes out, because there will be another stage ticked off by the time this is released. But we have plenty to talk about. So I know I was relatively hard on Kopecky after the Liège-Bastogne-Liège episode, where we said that she looked a bit tired after the race or during the race, and we questioned her form, her fitness, her approach to the season. And some questions were answered over the weekend because Kopecky released a statement kind of about why she was not having maybe as good a spring as she had expected and maybe the media had expected of her. Apparently, she's been suffering with a lingering knee injury that has kind of started her training over the winter and meant that she went into the spring with probably less form than she was hoping for or that she has in the past couple seasons. Yeah, so I guess she's been keeping this pretty quiet and didn't want the world to know about the knee injury, but was pretty keen for everyone to stop giving her such a hard time after the spring, which, totally fair. Totally fair.
Yeah, I think, living in Belgium, and of course Kopecky is like one of our stars. We've got a few of them, of course. And the media here in particular is really hard. I would liken it to the Australian media where, like, when you're doing very well, they love you and there's so much praise and everything is just sunshine and rainbows. And then as soon as there's some, inconsistency, Wout van Aert's an example in the men's peloton. Like, he's been running consistent top fives, but still they're shitting all over him in the media and saying he's done. So I actually hate that aspect of the media. Because I can imagine as an athlete, you try not to look at it, but it's hard not to see it when it's surrounding you all the time and when you're getting tagged in things and you're getting asked the same stupid questions week in, week out at the races. And like for her, clearly this has been an issue since the winter that she's been dealing with very privately. The team would obviously be informed as well as anyone within her network. And then, as soon as she's not winning everything, I can just imagine it's really tough. So,
It's not like she doesn't know that she's not doing what she wants to be doing. Like, same with Wout. And same with any athlete. It's not like the athletes are like, yeah, no, I'm super happy with how I'm doing, even though the media is like, no, every athlete wants more of themselves. So when you're hearing it from everyone else, and I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Like, when someone like Kopecky like had such an incredible season last year and then this year, not quite as good. Like I am the media that is like, I expected more of her, which is true, but also from an athlete's perspective and from someone who's like married to an athlete and friends with athletes, I'm like, I get how that would be really, really frustrating.
Yeah, I think we try pretty hard to not be too brutal on this podcast, but at the end of the day, we still have to be critical, and we certainly probably are the most critical of SD Works. It's sometimes you feel like, oh, okay, that's a good reality check on that other side of the fence to read those comments, to remember, of course, like we were all those athletes too one day in the past, and of course we didn't get that much attention like Kopecky does, but I think we still have a bit of that empathy there and understanding from being athletes. But yeah, on a much lesser scale, I definitely learnt a bit of that lesson in the past, being on the Green Edge team for many years and racing in Australia. Everyone wanted to take us down. And I've probably told this story before on this podcast, but it's, I wasn't always the big dog. I was the little dog for so long. And then I finally got good enough to be on a good team and to be part of the team that was supposed to win everything in Australia and also overseas, but mostly that pressure was for nationals and TDU and some of those other races in January. And it was like everyone against us, even the media. And you wanted to just be like, hey, I'm just a person too. And I had to work really hard to get here. So now when I am a fan or a commentator watching the best in the world, copying that flack all the time, I do often still barrack for them because it's so hard to get to the top, but I think it's even harder to stay there and to not feel like, you're going to be, it's like a David and Goliath situation and everyone starts going for David instead, even though they were going for you for a long time. It's like that they turn on you so easily. And I think, I try really hard not to think that now that I'm on the other side of the fence.
I mean, not everyone is Mariana Voss. Not everyone can go basically their entire career, like racking up wins. And even Voss has had a couple seasons where she's, slipped. But if we look at like the most dominant riders, it seems like the loudest and most dominant riders are always on the med side. If you think of like Sagan and Alaphilippe, who both won multiple world championships back to back and both had these like bursts of incredible form that lasted for a couple years and then basically like faded into obscurity. Like I think I was watching a men's race the other day and saw Alaphilippe and I was like, oh, I could have sworn that he was on a different team. Like I thought he was on Total Energy. So, like you just completely forget about them, and it's such a bummer. Like people have such short memories.
Yeah,
not that Kopecky is fading into obscurity.
No. No. And to your point, I mean, your role as the media is to analyze what's happening. But it's just that empathy part that sometimes the big outlets don't have. Like I'm not having a dig necessarily at the smaller outfits, but it's like Het News Blood, for example. They just want a catchy line that people are going to click on, right? And then quite often you dive into it and it's just poor journalism. But anyway, she's really headstrong. She's got big goals ahead, and I have no doubt that she'll get through this phase. I mean, she still won Flanders, so I would say,
I was about to say
it wasn't
that
like it wasn't a terrible spring. And she was like an integral part in a lot of the victories for SD Works Pro Time. So she will bounce back, and no doubt we will see her winning stages and perhaps a tour this year.
Yeah, and maybe like
tour.
She's taken a little bit of a page out of the Vollering playbook in being vulnerable, which is a good thing. We want to see a little bit more vulnerability and emotion with our athletes, and that's a really fine balance to tread as an athlete because you're still going to get hammered for it. I think maybe more so in the men's, but in the women's too, like showing vulnerability is still a little bit dangerous. So I think she tread that line pretty well on this instance.
And the more that the riders at the very top are vulnerable, the more it kind of makes it okay for other riders to be vulnerable. So even more, I guess important isn't the right word, but even nicer to see her opening up. And she's not a rider that we actually know a ton about. Like she's so stoic and pretty like blunt in her post-race interviews, but never like lets anyone behind the curtain like on her social media or anything. And I mean, the only thing that I know about her that makes me be like, yeah, she passes the vibe check is when she was on Lotto back in 2020 at the Giro. They found a box of puppies on the side of the road before one of the stages, and they kept the puppies in the team van with them the entire week, and then she helped smuggle them back to Belgium.
Yeah, I remember that. I wanted to get
be
one
adopted
of those
by loving families.
And my husband was like, no, we're not getting another dog.
So the fact that she was involved in that situation makes me be like, yeah, she seems like a pretty okay human being.
I was actually at a baby shower on the weekend with a couple of the Belgian local bike racers, so they race the Kermesse scene, and they're from Lotte's generation, and they were all saying how, for them, even though they're not really friends with her now, they went through the youth ranks with her, that she's basically stayed the same person, and she'll still like say hello and go up to them and everything, whereas they've noticed with some of the other Belgian pros that's not the case. They've got slightly bigger egos, but they're big Lotte fans, so yeah, she is a genuinely good person, and let's hope she has a fantastic second half to the season. A little bias there, but
you and your fantasy team would want that to happen. I actually haven't checked on the fantasy results. Maybe now is a good time to pull them up really quick and do a run through. Oh, no surprise! Tilda Price leads the fantasy competition. I knew that I was going to bring her into the fold and she was just going to wipe the floor with everybody. Gracie is a very, very close second. You're only like
I think I was
5 points behind.
I think I was leading last week, so I think we're going to be pretty close for a little while.
I think it will be like probably Tilda Reynolds and I from last year. That sort of
back and forth.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how many points you get for a team time trial win, but Shirin Van Anrooy is going to claw her way, hopefully out of the double digits and into triples. But I am holding down third, which is respectable, I think. I'm pretty happy with that. Loren, you're in fourth. You still don't have a name. Tills is in fifth, and Georgie Howe has been holding down last since day one. Still there.
Look, I'm surprised where I'm sitting, considering I think I only picked clients. I was like, Georgie, just select everyone who's a client for fun. And I don't think she really knew who they were. So I've got a few in there, but
it's actually kind of like insane that Kim LaCourte is your highest scorer and you have Kopecky on the team. Like that just kind of highlights how good of a spring campaign that Kim had.
Consistency.
So consistent. But I think that Georgie, I don't think she's out of this. I don't think she's like,
I don't
just
even know who
Georgie,
who does she have? Who's her top dog?
She's got Juliette Lebus. So we'll see how FDJ Suez, what they want to do with her. Like when it's not a question of if they give her leadership, it's just when they will give her leadership. She's got Neodoma, so that's a big question mark for how she's gonna take on the rest of the season going into the tour and everything. I think we can expect a lot from her coming into the later half of the season. Talita de Jong, who's been out.
Oh yeah, that was pretty unfortunate because I think she was gonna have a big year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sarah Van Dam, who just had a really great ride at Elsie Jacobs. Mariana Marcus, who's also had like kind of a quieter start to the year, that I think will be coming in hot at some point. So there's a lot of sleepers on her team. I think that she's we'll see. We'll see in the future how she's doing. Tills' team scares the living daylights out of me. Pauline Frambervo and Annemiek Anna van der Breggen. But yeah, we'll see. So far, top three: Tilda, Gracie, me. Not too bad. Oh, god damn it! I clicked on the men's. I'm so far down. Tom's is beating me. Kaylee is beating me. That's even worse.
Take that out. No, I'm joking. No. Keep it in. Keep it
in. I make no secret of the fact that I don't care if I lose as long as I beat Kaylee. Wait, that wouldn't make any sense. I don't care if I'm second to last as long as Kaylee is last. He knows it. Kaylee knows it too. Anyway, before we dive into the Vuelta, because I think the bulk of this episode is going to be about the Vuelta. Also, a quick mention for one of the other like kind of bigger races going on over the weekend. We had Festival Elsie Jacobs, which is normally has been a 2-day stage race. For many years it was a 2-day stage race, but last year was changed into 2 one-day UCI events, and it's kind of a big one in terms of there are always big name riders that show up for it, and it's just a prestigious race in its own right. Obviously, Elsie was the first female world champion in the inaugural World Championships back in 1958. So the race is named after her. And two races, two relatively hard courses, both of them circuits. We love a circuit. One of them was like kind of Plouay-esque, like big circuits, and then they like cut mid-circuit into 4 little circuits. And that race was won in the final 3 kilometers. There was an attack from Eva van Acht of Visma Leasewijk, and Visma Leasewijk had been aggressive pretty much all day, and she attacked with 3 kilometers to go. She brought Martelak and Sarah Van Dam with her, and they were caught by Maria Confalonieri and Margot van Pachtenbeke. The Dutch can tell me how exactly you pronounce that last name from Vocal Vessels. She rode really well at Turingen last year, so she's not like totally unknown.
I can have a crack at it. Margot van Pachtenbeke.
Oh, thank you, Loren. That sounded better. Better than mine. The 5 of them stayed away narrowly from a group of 9 that was chasing them and sprinted for the win. And Martelak took the win. Ahead of Confalonieri, and Sarah Van Dam took 3rd. So that was the first day. And I'm not expecting that either of you watched this race. But if you did, it was commentated on by one of our favorites, Christine Majerus. She's back. I was wondering where she'd been. So nice to see her kicking around.
Did she commentate in English or?
Yeah.
Wait,
She commentated in English.
Oh, nice.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm sure she would have been good.
Yeah, she was awesome. She was I think it was Dan Owen who was commentating with her, and he did talk a lot more than her, but her contribution was always just spot on, as you would probably expect.
Cool.
The second day was another hilly circuit race, and this one came down to a group of 15. It was won by Martina Fidanza of Visma Leasewijk, with Valentine Fortin of Cofidis coming in second, and Barbara Gracie of SC Works Pro Time taking 3rd. So World Tour riders having a crack over in Luxembourg, and there was also a handful of World Tour teams that sent their development teams to the race, and Liv Alula-Jacob's Conti team had a particularly fun time racing, and we're doing quite well. So it was nice to see them kind of taking on the bigger teams.
Yeah. Sorry if you mentioned this already at the start of this chat, but it was 2 one-day races, not a tour, which I was interested as to why they did that and didn't just make it a 2-day tour.
They started it last year, and I think it's because there are more UCI points on the line if it's 2 one-day races versus a 2-day stage race.
Okay.
And obviously with the new points system, they wanted to attract teams that will want to be points hunting. And so they switched it to 2 one-days instead. Yeah,
well, you don't really see that too often. So, yeah, that was interesting. And, yeah.
I'm just glad it's still on the calendar. Like, I'm glad that
It's a good race. Really well run. And it gives, like we've spoken about it before, but that continental level and development level and opportunity to race against some of the bigger names. You're not going to get like that top field, but as we saw, some really good riders did show up. So that's exactly the sort of balance you want and we need to see more of to help those riders from the smaller teams, the development riders, to continue developing. And we're just, we've said it again, that we're losing a few too many of these races. So the fact this stays on the calendar after so many years is fantastic. And I think there's a bunch of Belgian one-day races still coming as well.
Yeah, there are.
So keep your eye on that.
I was looking through the list of races and the VeloViewer to find the profiles for these races. The amount of UCI races that have been canceled this year is just insane. So many of the smaller races in Europe and like the US and stuff have all been canceled, and it's just we mention it a lot, but it is really getting dire at the Conti level.
I would actually, I don't want to go into it too much. I'd love an overview to actually see in the last 5 years how many races have been the lost. I do not have the time to do that, but if there is someone who is very good
I
with
would
that
love
stuff,
to do that for you, Loren. I can do that.
no, it's just really interesting for me.
Yeah.
Just with the interest in the sport, but with also thinking about how to develop young talent, what teams to put them in.
You know who
'cause
would
this
do
is-
that? Georgie Howe.
Yeah, she would. She would do that.
Hello, Georgie. I know you're listening to this.
We have a job for you.
Let me just add on to the list of things that I text you like every 2 days. I have a story idea. Here you go. Let's turn our attention to Spain. This week is the very first Grand Tour of the year. It kicked off on Sunday in Barcelona with a team time trial, with an 8.1 kilometer team time trial, which is very short for a team time trial and seems like kind of ridiculous to have the teams schlep the entire second trailer of TT bikes all the way to Barcelona for 8 kilometers, but here we are. It was a bit of a chaotic start for some people, and we will definitely dive into that. But after 9 minutes and 30 seconds, Little Trek won the race for the second year in a row, putting Ellen van Dijk in the leader's jersey on Catalonian Mother's Day, no less. Pretty cool. Pretty fun little side story. SD Works Pro Time took second, 3 seconds down, and Livalula Jaco was third. The team of defending champion Demi Vollering, FDJ Suez, was 6 seconds down on Little Trek, and they had one rider go down on the turnaround. Vittoria Guazzini went down. It looked like, I think Georgie said it looked like she clipped a pedal, or she just hit the brakes too late or something and went down on that corner, but she was able to get back up and ride to the line solo. But definitely would have been a blow not to have her on in there for the way back, especially with, I think they had a tailwind on the way back as well. Could have been really flying. So that was the results of the team time trial.
Well, before we break it down, I can tell you what the UCI points you get for winning a team time trial. They split it up between the riders, so it's 50 It's 50 points for the win. So each rider on Little Trek got 7.14 UCI points.
Oh, damn it!
Okay.
Nope. Shirin's still in the double digits for me. That's okay. I have high hopes for Shirin coming up in the future. Well, it meant that going into the second stage, which will have already finished by the time you're listening to this episode, Ellen van Dijk was the leader of the Giro, which is really nice to see given the season that she had last year. Just a lot of disappointment for Ellen last year, so she's been riding really, really well, and I think that she's a well-deserved wearer of the red jersey going into the second stage. Rihanna Marcus is second. She and Niamh Fisher-Black, who's third, they will be the kind of GC riders for Little Trek, so definitely put them in a good position. I don't know if 3 seconds over Anna van der Breggen is going to make too much of a difference when it comes to the stages near the end of the race, but having 21 seconds on Pauline Ferrand-Prévot might make a difference. And that 21 seconds we can talk about, because there was a lot of chaos at the start of a team time trial, which is already like a pretty chaotic event. You've got, all of the riders need to be at a certain point at a certain time. There's a lot of staff involved in a team time trial, a lot of extra equipment. When they arrive at the race in the morning, they have to get the bikes checked already to make sure that they pass the UCI rules for dimensions and what have you, saddle height. As a tall rider, the UCI's rules around TT bikes really sucks. I guess you guys are both really tall too, so you would know. Doesn't really make sense, but when that's a rant for a different time. So they get the bikes checked, then they all do their warm-ups, and then they have to arrive at the bike check again 20 minutes before the start for the bikes to be, or 15 minutes before the start for the bikes to be checked again before they go onto the start ramp altogether and roll down the line. Apparently there was a bit of a mix-up / just a knock-on effect of a team was late that caused the teams behind them to be late to get onto the ramp. And what ended up happening was Visma Lease bike was lined up 2 riders short. And as they rolled down the ramp, they had one of their riders kind of navigating their way through all the volunteers that hold the riders on the start ramp. And then another one of their riders coming out of the car chute to try to catch up. And the rider who came out of the car chute, Imogen Wolf, she wasn't able to catch up with the team because they have to start their race. It's not like the clock starts when they roll down the ramp. The clock starts when at their time of start, whether they've rolled down the ramp or not, which is part of the problem here. And so they couldn't wait for Imogen. And so they just went, and she had to ride the whole thing by herself. Yeah, it affected both Visma Lease bike and Uno X Mobility. Also had a very near miss at the start. And what it looks like happened is Movistar was late for their check-in, or AG Insurance was late for their check-in, and there was kind of a trickle-down effect. However, Movistar was fined 200 Swiss francs for all their riders and their directors. So they racked up a 1,600 Swiss franc fine. So I think we can kind of look at that and think, well, they must be the reason that the trickle-down effect happened. But it's just like, I think, yeah, on the one hand, you want to be on time for something like this. It's you have to be on time. It's not like something you can just mess around with. And on the other hand, the UCI only had one official measuring bikes and making sure that bikes passed the check. And so there was no way there was no like speedy way to get through the bike check. And they added another official later in the race, but that at that point it didn't really matter. Like it had already, Visma Lease bike had already lost extra time potentially than they would have. Pauline Fran Prevost had some words to say on Instagram, in a now deleted, Instagram story about the situation, but it was just a really unprofessional situation for the first Grand Tour of the year. And especially from the ASO, like they are the big dogs in race organization for cycling. So really surprising to see from them, and just a big disappointment.
I mean, shouldn't they have some sort of contingency plan? Because teams do run late for one reason or another. These things happen. So you would assume, like one person said on Discord, that like one team screwing up should not cascade into a consequence for everyone behind them. Because it was just chaos. And what was quite funny was like, you could hear from the commentary team, they were like trying to figure out what was going on while commentating. And then it was, at one point, they're like, okay, there's been several weird things happen now, which makes us think something is happening with whatever's going on behind the scenes there. And like, it was just, an odd thing to kind of watch. I had to re-watch it this morning because yesterday I was trying to juggle watching with kids and it was not making that much sense to me. But then, of course, all the talk in the media and the comments from the riders, it shouldn't happen. It's a Grand Tour. It's not like some 2.2 race that's not televised in the middle of nowhere, which, even then that doesn't really happen. So, point blank, it shouldn't happen.
Yeah, I think you're right, Loren. Like there probably is a contingency, but maybe it wasn't talked about enough before this. But like, I think depending on what race organization is there and what UCI officials are there to help with the running of the race and timing, they could just be sticklers, for process. And it sounds like that's what happened, in that they said, no, once we set the Tissot clock, I'm not sure what the time gaps were for this race, but for team time trials, it's usually around 3 minutes between teams. They would have just been like, no, it's all set. We can't change it. It is what it is. Not realizing probably how bad it was back there, or maybe some people knew what was really going on, but then you've got other people out front or in the truck. So yeah, probably just frustrating all around. And maybe like for individual time trials, if something goes wrong, sometimes they give leniency to a rider that's had a mechanical or something that is excusable, and they go last and they just skip their turn. But I think, in a team time trial, I'm not sure if they would do something like that. So, and every team knows they're not just 3 minutes behind the other, like whatever team they're behind. It's like, no, we're on at 7:48 at night. So they've timed their whole warm-up protocol to be perfectly ready and there for 15 minutes before their start time. So that's also like a whole added layer of complication. If you had changed any part of the schedule, you'd have to go to every team bus or to call around to make sure all of the teams behind would know that as well. So it's not a great situation to be in. So ultimately, the team that was late was the most responsible. And then the organizing committee also should have just had either a better protocol for change in schedule. But the simplest answer is they probably just should have had 2 people there doing bike checks straight away.
And if not, I mean, okay, hypothetically, if it was Movistar that was late, okay, the team that's already there waiting to be checked and they're on time, let them go through. Movistar gets checked after the race. And if something's wrong, then they get time deducted and penalized.
Yeah, yep.
And then you don't have this problem because they're not going to go anywhere. It's not like there's enough time for them to then go and change their bike or something if there was something illegal, for example, or just something that wasn't correct. Like, I feel like that's such an easy solution. Okay, you're late. This is going to screw up the whole thing. As soon as you finish the race, back to the whatever checking area, get checked. And if that messes up your warm down and everything else, well, so be it. It's easy for me to say that, but I feel like that's what I would do.
Yeah, I'm sure there was people stressing.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Some commissaires, man, they love it. Absolutely love it. It's the type of people that would like never have power anywhere else in the world, but they've found this niche place where they can have power.
Yeah.
Boy, do they exploit it.
They love their power.
They probably like failed at becoming a police officer and then they're like, this is the next best thing. Policing people on bikes.
I suppose the next thing to discuss, though, in this situation is like, was it the right thing for Visma Lease Bike and any other team who felt the need to then go and make a formal complaint because they had been affected?
I mean, I think yes, because Visma Lease Bike, like they have Pauline Fran Prevost on the team who I don't know if she can win the race, but this is kind of her first big test against Demi Vollering and the other GC contenders going before the tour. And we know that that's a huge goal for her. So this isn't just like a wash away race. Like this is a target for Pauline in a way to kind of suss how she's doing. And she's already 21 seconds down and we won't know how that measures out until the end of this race. But if she's off of the podium by 19 seconds, then like 16 seconds, then you know, like, well, she would have been third or something. We don't know how they would have done is the thing, but I don't think they would have lost that much time. They were down a rider already from the start. And so was Movistar. The Kat Ferguson had a front flat, like pretty much from the go, and they didn't have her for the majority of the race. And she's world junior champion time trialist, so she would have been an asset for Movistar. But Visma, well, they were basically down 2 riders from the start, and so it wasn't a good race for them. And I think all they can do, because they can't get that time back, there's nothing that they can do about that now. All they can do is lodge a formal complaint.
Yeah, what a shit show.
Yeah, and like having had raced team time trials, I think all 3 of us have done them.
Yeah, so stressful.
They're so stressful already. Even when things go well, they're like super stressful. So like my heart went out to those teams because you're already a bit flustered in some ways. So like that would have really affected the flow of that because you just need to be so focused.
I love team time trials. There's so few team time trials in racing anymore. They're only in stage races really now that Vagarda is gone. But it was how I started racing in collegiate racing, was a team time trial, a Merck style team time trial. And it was just like, I don't know. There's such a soft spot in my heart for a team time trial. When executed properly, it is just the most incredible feeling to cross that finish line with your whole team and get to stand on the podium all together. You never get to do that. So it's just so amazing.
Yeah.
I used to love the World's TTT. Never got to do it, but I always thought how amazing it would have been to stand up there with a rainbow jersey.
Yeah.
With all your teammates.
I reckon they should
bring it back.
Yeah. Obviously
bring it back.
Logistically and budget-wise, it's a bit frustrating for teams, but I love the trade team time trial. Such a cool way to finish the season, mostly with your teammates that you've been racing with all year, because racing for your country is also really special, but it's strange to come together with people you haven't been racing with all year. So to have a championship event that you can do with your trade teammates is really special.
Logistically also, the team having trade teams involved in the World Championships makes it a lot easier for a lot of the smaller nations to get their riders to the Worlds. For the World Championships in Rwanda, for 100%. Example, there's a lot of small nations that are really, really struggling with the logistics and the cost of that. And Australia was the same, the cost of these faraway Worlds. And I absolutely think that the World should be not only in continental Europe, because it's important for the globalization of cycling, but if you have the trade teams also helping fly riders to places, especially if they're on smaller, they ride for smaller nations, oh my gosh, it's just such a game changer.
Yeah.
Apart from the chaos that kicked off the Vuelta, and it probably won't be the only chaos that we see this week, we're going to dive into a little bit of what to expect from the stages. Stage 2, which will have already ended by the time you're listening to this, but I am excited for, is just outside of Barcelona. The roads are going to be damp, so that should make it a little bit more entertaining or terrifying, depending on who you are. But it's got this really technical, fun descent going after kind of a rolly course. There's a descent into the final 10 kilometers, and then the finish is actually on a little bit of a kicker. So a really great race for Marianne Vos, one of my members. Come on, Vos. You got me basically no points this year. Stage 3 is a sprinter stage. It's a gradual climb for the last 20 kilometers, but pretty much a sprinter stage, although there might be crosswinds on this stage, Gracie. The last 30 kilometers is just a straight road, and it does look like the wind is headed in a crossly direction, although it is not yet a speed at which would break up the peloton, but there are crosswinds. It's just, can they become stronger by the time the race happens? With the weather right now in Spain, I think there's actually a chance, because it's just very volatile at the moment. It's supposed to snow today in Andorra. Yeah.
Weird
really
weather, huh? Usually by this time of year, I just remember, it's been almost a decade since I lived in Spain, but by this point, you were definitely shorts and shirt, very warm weather. However, the tracker did look really good.
So fun.
So, yeah, definitely causing a lot of FOMO on social media with all the bloody people at the tracker. But that's something else. Not jealous at all. But yeah, the weather down south has been really odd for this time of year.
I'm going to just bang through the first couple stages because it gets interesting in the end bit. And we talked a bit last episode about the harder stages, but I dove into them more since then. So that's why we're kind of going to talk about them a little bit again. Plus, a refresh before the week actually happens is never a bad thing. And if you want to read the full breakdown of the race, it is on escapecollective.com, and I'm covering each of the stages, and at the end of the coverage of the stage is tomorrow's stage, so makes it really easy for you at home to keep up with what's coming. Stage 4 is another kind of interesting one. There's 2 climbs in this one, and the second climb is a category 3, and it happens pretty close to the finish. They basically get to the top and then descend to the line. It's about 12 kilometers of descending to the finish. So this isn't really a GC day per se, but if there are riders who aren't feeling super confident about the long climbs coming up later in the week, I think that stage 4 is a stage where they will potentially try to get a little bit of time on their rivals by attacking over the top of that climb and descending to the finish. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think so. Like there's plenty of opportunist riders that also didn't get what they wanted maybe out of the spring. So like the tour season is filled with opportunities. So you're going to take them when you can get them on the medium kind of stages that aren't clearly sprinters or climber stages. Definitely looking at, riders maybe like Liana Lippert. It certainly depends who is their teammate. So you're maybe not going to be seeing FDJ sending riders up the road to be opportunists. Not that they shouldn't, but, like some teams might be a bit more cautious because they've got a clear favourite for GC. I think it's about looking at those teams to think, who's happier to gamble a little bit more and hedge their bets a little bit more.
Well, how do you think SD Works Pro Time are going to race this? Because, I mean, this is the first year I feel like they've come into one of these grand tours with not like the standout potential winner. Of course, Van der Breggen could be up there, but it's not like she is the standout.
I'm curious to see how this sentence ends for me, but I think they're going to probably go for like Bredewald today, stage 2, because she could, if she wins the stage, she could take the red jersey. And for there's a couple stages that I think they will be able to win like in a stage hunting way. But I think they also are curious how Van der Breggen is going to stack up. So I don't think that they're fully writing Van der Breggen off as a GC contender. And I think that she is, in the classic Van der Breggen style, downplaying herself as a GC contender in this race. Like, I think, her classics campaign was potentially not what she wanted, and she's not won a race yet, and she still has the spring races or the Spanish races to make my prediction of her winning a World Tour event before June 1st come true. I think she's going to want to use this race, kind of like Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, as a test to see how she stacks up against the GC contenders going into the Giro and the Tour, which, like, no shade to the Vuelta, but those are kind of the two races that hold a little bit more weight on the women's side. The Tour because it's the Tour, the Giro because it's one of the longest running races on the women's calendar, and the Vuelta is new. This is only the 11th year of the Vuelta, but it's only like the 3rd year that it's been a week-long race. Before that, it was only a couple stages, and for many years, it was only a one-day event in Madrid, or like a team time trial and a one-day event or something like that. So, I think for Van der Breggen, like, this is a easy, like, find your footing in a stage race. Maybe she didn't have the acceleration or like the form she needed during the spring to get a result, but getting a result in a stage race is something that she knows how to do. So I think that she's going to be trying to see if she still knows how to do it in the year 2025. Moving on to stage 5, which is the first really, really big GC stage of the race, 120 kilometers with 2 climbs. In the very back end of the race, there's a Cat 2 that descends into a Cat 1, and it's very, very similar to the stage in the Giro last year on Blockhouse, where they did one ascent of Blockhouse, like mini Blockhouse, and then they went down, and then they went around and did it again, but kept going to the top, and it's the same thing. So they do like the first climb is just the same climb as the second climb, but they keep going. They take a left or something and keep going. So this is going to be the first like real test of the GC riders, the first real test for FDJ's super squad, and the first test for everyone who thinks that they can beat Demi Vollering on a climb.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this because, first Grand Tour of the season. We haven't had a stage race since February, where a lot of the top dogs showed up in Valencia. So everyone is just, I guess, biding their time for Thursday. And like you said, Abby, it's going to be a question of how FDJ Suez rides this. But I'm curious to see the other teams that have really strong climbing teams like Phoenix Koenig. I think they can have a really strong showing. I'm excited to see what Royackers can do in a really hard mountain stage with the support of someone like Castelline.
Yeah, I think FDJ is hands down the strongest climbing team on the start list with Avita Music, Demi, and Juliette Labousse. But there are other teams that they have the chops to be able to challenge FDJ Suez. It's just how do they use them? And Phoenix Akunik is one that, and as Gracie mentioned in the last episode, they also have Annemiek van Vleuten as a mentor, and she won this race, and she knows how to race a climb, and she also knows how to beat a powerhouse team. In her day, it was SC Works or Boels Dolmans, and now it's FDJ Suez with the new squad that they've put together. But it's also a new team that they've put together. So we don't actually know like how they are going to use these riders, but I think we can guess, and I think it's safe to say that there's not going to be any drama in the FDJ Suez camp anytime soon. Like, they are riding super well as a unit. They're all behind a common goal. So I think the difference between Annemiek taking on like Van de Breggen, Demi, Ashley Mohamed-Passio when that was SC Works back in the day and they had such a strong climbing unit, and other teams taking on FDJ Suez now, is that FDJ Suez is a very well-oiled machine already.
I'm also very excited to see how Little Trek goes with the combination of Neve Fisher-Black, Marcus, and Shirin Van Anrooy. Because on paper, those three could be pretty dangerous. And just in general, I think Neve has been having a pretty good season. And yeah, this should be a good opportunity for her to sort of show herself as that potential GC contender. She was really strong in the TTT as well.
Neve's been like really, really consistent. I think she's been quietly consistent all spring, but she's also been like left out on her own to dry a little bit. Like a lot of the time she had Amanda Spratt with her, especially like in the most recent races. But she's been getting top tens almost by herself in the pointy end of the race. So I think going into this with a strong team around her and kind of like a co-leadership situation with Rihanna Marcus, who, like, lest we forget, finished second in the Vuelta last year. I always forget that she finished second. And like, it was such a quiet ride into second. Like, she never attacked. She never really did anything, but she just like was always there. And I think she was on better form last year than this year, but she's been spending a lot more time this year at altitude. So curious how that factors into her riding on the like longer climbs.
Yeah, and another rider to take note of, and I'm really curious to see how she goes, is from Team Picnic Post NL, is Ninka Vinka. Very young, only 20, but she showed a lot of promise the past season and has had some good rides already this year. But I mean, this is really her bread and butter. So I know that she's going to be the leader for that team, and I'm really curious to see how this young climber goes.
I'm looking forward to just seeing who now comes out of the woodwork, because sure, there's plenty of hilly races in the spring classics, but one day racing is so different to tours in many ways, in that, I think like we're going to see the next wave of young climbers come to the fore in these tours coming up. And I'm looking forward to seeing some new names that are not being belted around by one day racing, that can't quite show us their qualities. But in a tour, everyone's just that little bit more settled, especially in the back end of a tour, and you're coming up to those mountain stages. You get a better idea of where people lie on the road. I shouldn't say lie. You don't want them to be lying down, but you know what I mean? Where the results will show us a little bit of a different picture to what we've seen in the spring. And you've mentioned those names too that we haven't seen really shine yet this year, like Dave Fisher-Black. Looking at a couple of those other names, like Ninka Vinka was a good example. Some of the riders at Canyon Tram, looking forward to seeing what they can come up with. And yeah, just seeing who else comes out of the woodwork, and then maybe seeing how Kristen Faulkner is starting to steadily come back through as well.
I mean, for Canyon Rams on to crypto, like Antonia Niedermeyer was riding really well at the tail end of the classics. And we know that they're not riding for Kasia. She's been pretty vocal that she's coming into this race as a domestique, and she's really excited to give back to the team. So you've got to look at like Neve Bradbury, who obviously finished on the podium of the Giro, but also has had like a quite tumultuous run at the classics this year. She's had a lot of illness. She missed Flèche and Liège-Bastogne-Liège due to illness. So coming into this race, I think the rider that they're going to be kind of pinning their goals on is Niedermeyer. I am so excited for stage 6. Stage 6 looks like the best stage for a breakaway. And like normally happens, the profile given to us by ASO does not give this stage justice at all. There's a really, really good climb in the first 15K of the race. That's a perfect launching point for any attacks. And so it's a good breakaway day because someone could get away at that point. But what's even more exciting is these 3 little lumps at the end of this stage. They are all about 2 kilometers long, 2.3, 2.1, and 1.8. They're all about 2 to 6%, but some have like an 8% thrown in there. And they're all just back to back to back. Like the only reprieve over those 3 climbs is the first 2 have a bit of a plateau at the top. They when you're looking at it on like Google Maps, the descents are quite technical and smaller roads, and they come off of the back of the descent and go straight into the next climb. So the peloton will already be stretched out at that point when they hit the base of the next climb. And then it's a short one, so they can hit it like really hard. And then there's a little bit of a flat section before they get to the finish, but the finish is up a climb, or like up a little poppy climb with a few pretty sharp turns in the final kilometer. So it's a really technical finish from like 20 kilometers out already.
Yeah, I love how on the official website it says it's a flat stage. And you're right, Abby, like the profile that they've given us does not do it justice. So it's a pretty rude way to finish, or to have the second last stage of a tour, that the sprinters are dragging themselves to the line on to see if they can get a shot at one more result. And it's going to just be absolutely carnage, I think, at the end.
I mean, it's a race where like if the GC teams will not necessarily want to control it because the next stage is really hard and the stage before it will have been hard for them. The sprinters teams are only going to want to control it if they actually back their sprinter on a sprint like this. And I think there are a couple teams that like might control it because there's a chance their sprinter could still win after those 3 climbs at the end. But I think like for the most part, the majority of teams that are looking at like big picture are going to look at this stage and be like, I don't think we need to like really rein in a break on this day.
Yeah, it all comes down to that, isn't it? Second last day, if you haven't as a team done anything in the race, like gotten a result, that's what I mean, then this is that last opportunity if you don't have someone that you think is either going for GC or could potentially contend for the last stage, which is going to be the GC contenders, right? Like maybe something tries to go, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to those big riders. Yeah, I'm really curious because anything could potentially happen on this stage. But like you said, it's looking good for a break. This could be a really good stage for someone like Faulkner, who isn't scared to just go really deep the day before, like another hard stage. She's not going to be a GC contender on that last stage, just based as well on her lead up to this point in the spring. So could be a good stage for her, someone like her, or Cabal.
I could also see like GC favorites who lose time on stage 5 going for this stage. Like I could see Niwadoma going for this stage. She loves a descent. There's also a possibility of crosswinds in the end, and they change direction a lot in the last like 20 kilometers. And the wind is in like the perfect direction to impact it if there are gusts. The way that they change direction could mean that there are some crosswinds as well. But I think like with those climbs and the way that those climbs back each other and the way that it descends to the line, like if the race shakes out a certain way, you could have like Little Trek loses everything. They could send Anna Henderson on those descents. Like she descends like a fiend, you know? But it's not just the big teams. I think like little teams that if they lose time, if their favorites lose time, like there's no skin in the game for them anymore in the GC. They can go absolutely feral. All right, stage 7. The final stage of the race, and they really saved the best for last, potentially. 152.6 kilometers. So not only is it the longest stage of the race, a couple of the stages are really short. 99K, I think, is stage 2. And yeah, there's a 100K stage. Most of the stages short. This stage, longest 152.6. And there are 3 categorized climbs, a Cat 2, a Cat 1, and a Cat 1. There's pretty good breaks in between each of those climbs. So they're not back to back. There's pretty long breaks in between the climbs, so they're not back to back like stage 5, but the stage overall is quite hard. It basically starts with climbing, and then there's a really, really long descent, and then they hit the first categorized climb, and the final climb, the Asturias climb, is the longest climb with sections of up to, I think I saw 16% when I was looking at VeloViewer. And yeah, 9.3 kilometers long and very steep at the beginning, middle, and end. So that will be cliche, but where the race is decided.
Brutal.
Yeah. Looking at the color-coded profiles of these Cat 1 climbs, they look pretty brutal. So there's going to be some pretty big time gaps.
And like you said, Abby, it's the longest stage, and I think in your preview you suspect that it's not going to kick off until quite late in the stage, just because I guess riders and teams don't know which way it's going to go. Right? It's the first Grand Tour of the season too. There will be tired legs, nervous legs. If you're really bold and brave, its opportunity to go up the road is in the kilometers leading up to it and getting a nice gap, because I don't think anyone's going to be chasing.
I mean, I think like Little Trek is going to try to send people up the road to have people on the climbs already when selections are made. Like they love to do that. They do that all the time. But for like FDJ Suez, I think they're going to want to hit the base of the final climb with as many of their riders as they possibly can. So they're going to be interested in keeping the race a certain pace, that it doesn't, when they hit the first 2 climbs, they don't lose anyone important before they get to the final climb. But there are definitely other teams that are going to want to put pressure on the race before they get to that final climb, like probably SC Works Pro Time. Like, why not? YOLO. Canyon SRAM as well. I could see them putting Kasia on the front, maybe like trying to get her domestiquing to shed some riders from the peloton before they get to the final climb. So this one is going to be, I think this is the stage.
Or attacking.
Yeah, I think this is the stage that we're going to be able to read into future Grand Tours for this year by how this stage goes and how teams approach it.
I'm going to pick up some sweet draft points. Or have I just jinxed myself and Demi Vollering?
I hope you just jinxed yourself. I mean, so I when Demi Vollering lost the Vuelta, P-Gate. You guys remember P-Gate? How could you forget? Anna van der Breggen was the DS at that point. I'll never forget. So it was whoever made the call that was a good time to stop and take a pee. Anna van der Breggen didn't say no, and Demi didn't say no. And it's really like, I mean, that's the biggest kind of rivalry, quote unquote, rivalry in the peloton right now, even though we haven't seen van der Breggen race a Grand Tour yet in her second career.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. She doesn't give anything really away, Van der Breggen, in her facial expressions when she's hurting. So that's what I like about her. Very much a poker face.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to sit here and make predictions, but really at the end of the day, we don't know. This has happened all spring where you think something's going to happen and it doesn't, or riders underperform or overperform. So it's the first Grand Tour and a lot is possible. Clearly, there are some riders who've come in with great form. There are teams that have been racing really well continuously through the spring. There are also teams that are just sending a team there to be opportunistic, which is going to keep the race exciting, I think. So it's not just the GC battle. There are many different races happening within this race.
We've also seen some really weird tactics this spring. So I think that there's also like a lot that we just can't predict because of how some of the tactics have gone. And I think it's also worth noting that like not all of the GC contenders that we expect to race the Giro and the Tour are here. We don't have Elisa Longoborghini is probably the biggest name not racing, and she had a huge spring and is looking forward to a break. So she's not at the race. And UAE Team ADQ, which I think like going into the season we all thought was going to be one of the big shiny teams next to FDJ Suez with the riders they picked up. They started the race one rider short actually because Brody Chapman is also suffering from illness. So they actually only started with 6 riders.
So that's a team that just needs to look at this race as they're going to have to be opportunistic, try and get Gillespie up for a stage win in one of the sprints or go up the road, look for a stage, the second last stage.
Tell Erica to just like hold on the climbs. Just like how long can you last on the climbs, basically?
I guess everyone, I don't know about you guys, but I'm just curious to see like, is Demi going to be as dominant as we've seen in the past on these sort of climbs? And
yeah,
I
suppose that is the big question.
Yeah.
And my instinct is to say she's still going to win, but I think the gaps won't be as big.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's becoming a lot tighter race, or I don't know what the expression is with horses.
Horses for courses? That's not it.
No,
that's not right. But I do like that expression. All right, let's wrap this up. We will be back next week to talk even more about the Vuelta. Thanks everyone for listening, and hopefully you enjoy the racing this week. I have a great obsession that I'm excited to tell you guys about, and it is Amy Sherman Palladino's new TV show, the creator of Gilmore Girls and Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. She has a new show, unfortunately on Amazon Prime. She's got like a deal with them. It's called Etoile, and it brings together her two loves. Fast talking and ballet. And for anyone who's like a really big fan of her work, you will know about a TV show that happened a really long time ago featuring Sutton Foster called Bunheads, which is one of my favorite TV shows of all time, about a Vegas dancer who marries a fan of hers on a whim and is brought back to this tiny little California town, and then he dies. Spoiler alert, it's the first episode. He dies and she's stuck there with the mom, and the mom has a ballet studio. It's one of the best shows of all time. So this is like the grown-up Bunheads for me, and I have been eating it up. I have been loving every second, and it's just counterbalancing my daughter's current obsession with ballet, which if she's not allowed screen times except on Sundays because the weekend is coming to an end and I'm at the end of my rope. So I'm like, you can watch a movie on Sunday while I make dinner. And every single time she just wants to watch the Nutcracker Ballet. So we're a very ballet centric house at the moment. And Etoile has just added like a really, really heartwarming feeling to my days. So
how nice for you. Everything still centers around cars in my household. And balls. Cars and balls.
Yeah. I feel like I'm going in that direction, Loren. I can see Noah just like starting to push around things with wheels, and I'm like, oh, it's happening.
Yep. Yeah.
Just show him the Nutcracker, see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're trying to expose him to lots of different things, but I think a lot of boys just naturally like the sports stuff.
Yeah, they do. It's fine.
And that's okay.
I'm so happy you had a boy. Someone else to talk about boy things with. It's so lonely. It was so lonely.
Yeah, we can bond, Loren, over this.
My obsession, it's a new book. I've just started it. It's I don't want to butcher her name, but I think I'm saying it right. I guess everyone's familiar with the author Celeste Ning. She's written quite a few really good books. I'm reading I think it's her most recent book, Our Missing Heart, which is a story about the character. His name's Bird, and he's a 12-year-old boy living in, I guess, modern day America, it almost sounds like. And yeah, it's a bit scary to read it because it almost feels like it's present day America. Like it's very utopian, but it's basically just a world of fear mongering. And yeah, I don't know how to describe it. I'll have to link the synopsis, but it's pretty scary to read, but really good. I'm only like 15, 20 pages in, but I have my reading bits before bed, and that's why I am so slow at reading at the moment. That's the only time. Yeah, it's a compelling dystopian novel set in a near future America where cultural and political repression is the norm. That summarizes it in a sentence, but it kind of felt like modern day America to me.
I don't know if I can read that.
I know, I can't.
Yeah, she obviously wrote it
a
few years ago,
Yeah.
but that's why when you're reading it now, you're like, oh shit, wow, she wrote this, but it's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always struggled with that stuff, but I'm struggling more with it now. So
yeah,
like I can't even finish Severance at the moment, even though it's really good. I can't finish Handmaid's Tale. I'm struggling on that
This is
stuff.
why I only read like historical fictions where you know the outcome, or fantasy novels that don't take place in the real world.
Yeah, I have to go back to that because but now I'm a person, like if I start a book, I just have to like push through. And she's a great writer, so yeah, it's a good story, but I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah, keep us updated.
Oh, and look, this review is, I would describe it as 2020 on steroids.
Oh no.
Oh jeez. I don't want to go back to 2020.
But that's my vibe.
Okay, Gracie, what's your obsession?
I just had a really nice weekend doing a charity style ride, and I haven't done one of these type of things for years, so it was really cool to be invited to one in the first place. And I wanted to say yes because I needed a little bit of fun back in my life, and I've been having so much fun as a mum, but I wanted to have a bit of fun back on the bike as well. So it was cool to do that. And it was for something that's always been something I've cared about and have been a little bit part of over the years, which is the Amy Gillett Foundation. That's just rebranded just to Amy's Foundation. It actually went into administration a couple of years ago, and they've managed to salvage it and start it back up again. And in Australia, it's one of our road safety foundations in honor of Amy Safe, or Amy Gillett, her married name, who was, we've mentioned on the podcast a few times now. She was an Australian rider who was tragically killed in an accident with a car on the training roads where the Turingen Tour races. So they were there as a national team, and a car was flying around the bends and drove straight into her and the whole national team. She was doing an effort out in front of the group, so she was hit first, but the car was traveling at speed and hit all of the other riders too. And yeah, it was just such a huge loss for her family and friends, but the whole Australian cycling community, and really the whole professional cycling community at the time in 2005. So 20 years on, it's really special to still be carrying that message in Australia and connect with people that I've connected with in the past, have some good conversations, have fun. We got to ride in the Adelaide Hills which is one of my favorite places to ride. Strange to be there when it's not TDU time, but it's beautiful with all the autumn colors. So there was definitely some emotions there, as well as some really nice moments, and especially super nice to ride with some of the women that were in the generation before me, that they all kind of retired at the same time, right before I was coming into the sport. And I always kind of rued that I didn't have the generation of Aussie women before me to learn from. And yeah, Loren's in that same category with me, in that there was this gaping hole in the generations that when we were coming through, we were all really peers and didn't have a couple of older women to learn from Australia. So we'd certainly learnt from the Euros, but yeah, that was always something that I really noticed when I was a younger rider. So super nice to connect with them now and carry that message forward.
And this year's the 20-year anniversary, right, Gracie?
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, it's a special thing here in Australia, and yeah, but it was also just a super nice weekend, and I got really flogged. Luckily the rides were only like 85 kilometers but they're in the hills, so there's a lot of climbing.
Yeah.
And I'm not fit. I thought I was going to be a bit fitter for it, but I was sick back to back, thanks to Noah, for about 6 or 7 weeks. So yeah, I suffered through, but you know, the body remembers 25 years of cycling, so I could still suffer, but I'm paying the price a little bit today.
It's funny. I bumped into Emma Johansson at a junior race. She was there with a Norwegian team, and she was saying the same thing, Gracie, like she's not fit at all and she's got 3 kids. But when she's done recon with them, for example, Junior Flanders, she still has like that muscle memory that she can suffer for the duration of the hard climb, but it's like the in-between bit that she doesn't have anymore. Good old muscle memory.
And like your neck and your back, and like my arms were lactic.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like cramping everywhere.
But it was so nice to see you
fun.
on a bike on your Instagram.
Yeah, it was a
stories.
good picture of you and Grace.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there was about 10 of us former pros and 10 special guests. So It was a nice group of people.
Well, how great is that feeling of like getting back on your bike outside after having a baby?
So
oh my
good.
God.
Amazing.
Like, cannot compare it to anything else.
I don't know the last time I did a bike ride in Lycra. Like, I ride my bike every day for commuting purposes, but like I don't remember. And that's very strange. Other than Lycra on Zwift, but that doesn't count. Like Lycra out on the road.
We love Zwift. We love Zwift, but nothing can really compare to like getting your face in the wind.
It's going to happen this summer.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm going to get to the summer and then
Loren, you've got too much on your plate. You need time to ride a bike
for now.
outside.
It's fine. I'll be fine.
All right. We're wrapping this up. Thanks everyone for listening. We will be back next week. I won't be back next week, but you guys will have a leader in someone else, and it'll be a great episode, and we might have a special guest. So stay tuned for that. Have a great week, everybody.